Hey everyone, this is Sir Balo, and for this video, we're going to talk about another object-oriented programming principle called polymorphism. Now, I already mentioned polymorphism in our previous video about inheritance. And the reason for that is polymorphism and inheritance are interconnected, are related, very much related. No? Now, it doesn't mean that uh, when you have a base class and a derived class, you already achieve polymorphism. Well, but once you started to create two or more subclasses, and each of these subclass has the same base class, there's a chance that you might need to apply polymorphism in your code. And so, yeah, that will be the focus of this video. Specifically, what we're going to tackle is the following. Of course, what is polymorphism? How do we implement it in Dart? And why do we use polymorphism? And lastly, when do we use polymorphism? Or when's the right time, rather, to use polymorphism? So, let's start with a definition right away. What is polymorphism? When we say polymorphism, no, before this definition, in order for you to have like an idea, with just by this itong word lang na, polymorphism, no? If we divide this into two words, poly and then morphism. When we say poly, just like polygon, poly means many, and then morphism means it comes from the word morph, meaning form. So if we combine those two definitions, we now have this definition. So polymorphism is the ability of an object to take on many forms. Yan lang. Many forms. Polymorph. Many forms. Okay? Yan lang. But meron pang catch pa pala. The object that has the ability to polymorph or take on many forms also behaves differently depending on its current form. Yun. So, in order to understand this concept, this definition, to be specific, let's have a sample code right here. Let's say in line 33, we have an animal or my animal na polymorphic object. Technically, wala pa tong object because we just defined an empty variable too. But once we go to line 35, my animal is equals to dog. So we are assigning the my animal variable with a object from the dog class. And that's because tinawag natin yung constructor. And you know naman in our previous video that whenever we call a constructor, we are creating a class. And in this case, yung object na to, and create natin, comes from the dog class. So, with that in mind, technically, my animal is now taking on its current form. Yung current form niya is dog. Yung current form niya is dog. And once we dive into line 36, when we call the make sound of the my animal method, output niya is dog barks. Okay. Now, take note of this like two lines of code because this is going to repeat in the next couple of codes. In fact, in our next code, ganun pa rin, but this time, my animal is assigned with another object from the cat class. So technically, our animal, my animal, the polymorphic object, it changed its form from a dog to cat na siya. So now my animal is now technically, yung current form niya is cat. And once we call the make sound again, we call it for the second time, the make sound method. Notice that it brings a different output. Cat meows. Now, you might be wondering, how did that happen? Ano ba yan? Paano natin iba yung output? Isang method lang naman yung tinawag natin, no? Now, here's another, for the last code. This time, for line 41, my animal is now equal to the object from the cow class. So, technically, my animal has changed once again, the third time around, no? From dog, cat, now naging cow na siya yung current form niya. Well, and once we call the make sound method, same method for the third time around, iba na naman yung output niya. Naging cow goose. And that's, with this example code, we just demonstrated the concept of polymorphism. Again, no, we have a object that can take on many forms. In this case, the my animal object. And then, whenever that object takes on a form, nagbabago yung behavior niya. In this case, yung make sound, nagbabago siya for line 36, naging siya ng dog bark. For line 39, iba na naman yung behavior niya. For line 42, nagbago na naman yung behavior niya. And that's what polymorphism is all about. Now, you are wondering, how did we do that? No? How did us napansin nyo in our previous videos that whenever we call a method, pabalik-balik, well, ulit-ulit, paras lang talaga yung output niyan. But this time, we call a method 3 times, and for every time we call a method, nagbabago yung output niya. Why is that? No? And how we achieve that is, first, that polymorphic object is an instance of a base class. Now, if we dive into the class definition ng line 33, ito yung itsura niya. We have a class, animal, and then we have just a generic make sound, the method. Doesn't matter itong but anyway, ito yung next na important na i-take note nyo. Each object that we assign sa my animal is an instance of the polymorphic objects derived classes. Now, ano ba ito ibig sabihin na polymorphic objects derived classes? Let's recap. Ano ba yung class ng my animal, which is yung polymorphic object natin? Diba? Animal. And so, dapat yung mga objects nito na in-assign, line 35, line 38, line 41, the dog, the class, and cow, this should be a derived class of the animal class. Yan yung ibig sabihin yan. And we can check that with this code right here. So on line 9, kita natin that dog extends animal. So therefore, dog is a derived class of the polymorphic objects class, which is animal. Line 17, cat is also extending animal. Therefore, cat is a derived class of animal. And line 25, cow is also a derived class or subclass of the animal class, which is the class of our polymorphic object, my animal. So I hope that with this illustration, nag-gets nyo yung ibig sabihin itong line number 2. Okay. And lastly, how we are able to achieve a polymorphic behavior is each derived class, the dog, the cat, and the cow, overrides the same method. So notice, pare-pareho sila na in-override. No? The dog overrides make sound, cat overrides make sound, and make sound. And for each make sound, iba-iba yung implementation niya. The dog barks sa dog class, cat meows for the cat na class, and then make sound sa cow na make sound. And so yun. That's how we achieve a polymorphic behavior. itong tatlong mga points, no? Going back, how we were able to achieve that code kanina, ito. First is we have an animal base class. Our polymorphic object should have a base class. And then for each object, those are derived classes. Yung derived, they are extending the same base class, which is animal. And then for the third is each of these classes also are overriding the same method. Then that's pretty much about it. And so, despite calling the same method, which is yung make sound, the output differs depende sa actual type ng object during runtime. So yun naman yung point dito, no? And now, the question is, why do we use polymorphism? Why do we need this sort of a polymorphic behavior in it? An object, that changes behavior depende sa current form niya or type, Why do we need this object-oriented concept? For a simple reason, we want a maintainable code. Yun lang, more maintainable code. Let's have another set of examples, Yung set of classes. Again, we have a base class character. Then we have 3 derived classes. Derived classes kasi they are extending the same base class, which is character, the player, enemy, and NPC. And they are sharing common attribute nga name attribute. Now, let's say we have a existing code, which is a main function. And sa code lang naman niya, is dalawa lang yung main idea dito. First is it created a list of characters. The first object is from a player. The second object sa list or array, enemy. And then the third element ng array is an object na NPC. And then sa line 26 is just a loop. And for each object sa array natin or sa list, we're going to check, we're going to apply this sequence of if-else conditions. So obviously the first loop natin, kasi this will loop 3 times, kasi we have 3 objects. So the first loop, obviously yung first is player. So once we check this method or this condition, line 57, if character is player, which is correct, true, it will print this following or it will execute this print function na character name swings a sword. So kung ang character or if yung current object sa loop is player, it will print the name of the character and swings a sword. So now, since true naman to, the rest of these conditions are ignored. And so we proceed with the next loop, the second loop. The current object now is enemy. And so we check line 27, this is false. So we proceed with the next condition, this one. Now, this time, true na to. If the character is enemy, which is true, kasi pangalawang loop na tayo, then we execute this instruction, print character name, shoots an arrow. And then, proceed with the third loop. And sa third loop natin, NPC na yung object. And obviously, false tong dalawa, like with 729, it will proceed with this. Magiging true siya yung condition natin sa line 31. So, if this is true, it will print character name waves hello. Yeah, so that's basically the flow of this main function. And however, there's a problem with this approach or with this code, Kasi, what if we're going to introduce a fourth subclass or fourth derived class? So, mangyayari, we're going to update this code. We're going to insert another else if condition dito. basically we are changing the current existing code. No? And yeah, that's the problem. No? If we extend new functionality whenever we add new subclasses, we are disrupting the existing code. In this case, yung existing code natin is yung the entire main function. That's a bad practice. We don't want the existing, in programming, no, we don't want the existing code na matamper or ma-change, mabago whenever our requirements sa program nagbabago or when we extend new functionality. Okay? Now, there's actually a way or a better approach for this. And when I say better approach, it's the opposite, no? When we extend new functionality, we don't interrupt the existing code. That is what we want to achieve. And that's the good and the better approach. So how do we do that? The first is, so notice, each class has an additional override already na attack na method. And for each, this attack method is present out among the subclasses. We have an attack for the player, we have an attack for enemy, and we have attack method sa NPC. And also notice that for each class, they have their corresponding or sarili nilang implementation. Basically, kung ano yung nasa if-else condition natin kanina sa main dito, we just transfer them to their respective classes. So, yung print kanina sa if-else, nandito na sa attack na method ng player. Itong print na to, shoots an arrow, is now under sa attack na method. And then same also with this one. Now, what's gonna happen with our main method, our main function? Ganito na lang kaliit. Kasi we already transferred all the instructions right here. And now, instead of a sequence of if-else conditions, we just leave it with a polymorphic code, one line of polymorphic code, character attack. So, this better approach is pretty much the same. It pretty much achieves the same thing sa katong code kanina, no? Diba? For every, this is a for loop. Ganun pa rin, for loop, where for each character dito sa array natin, we just simply call the attack method. And yun. So, kung for the first loop, kung player, so yung attack ng player yung tatawagin. And for the second loop, since yung character is now enemy, once tatawagin na tong attack na method, it will execute this one instead. Yung line 22 to 24 na attack. And then, for the third loop, once tinawag yung attack the same method, it will behave, yung behavior ng attack will be based on the NPC na class. So, line 31 to 33 yung, or the print statement right here sa line 32 yung ma-execute. And yun. Basically, we just achieve the same thing. But now, this is a better approach kasi what if we create a new subclass? Now, let's say we have a fourth class called creature. And ganun pa rin, it overrides the attack. It has an overridden method attack, and then it has its own implementation sa attack method niya. And then notice that there's only little to no changes, though. In fact, yung change lang nito is line 50. We just inserted a new object. However, though, etong loop na to, it didn't change. It just remains intact. Same lang. And this is what we want sa main function natin. what we want is whenever we create whenever we create new sets of classes or subclasses, yung main function natin or yung existing code natin, line 45 to 56, minimal changes lang yung mangyayari. And that's the better approach. In other words, we want to, as much as possible, whenever we extend functionality or we create new subclasses, we extend functionality with minimal changes to the existing code. This is the better approach. And that with that approach, mas easier or mas maintainable yung code natin. So yun. And now let's proceed with our last point. When do we use polymorphism? We need to fulfill two conditions. First is one, the new class that we create natin must has an there's a hierarchical reuse of code. So the new class should extend a base class. And the second is there's variations in behavior among derived classes. So if you have two or more derived classes where each derived class or subclass has its own set of own implementation sa behavior niya, yun, that's pretty much it, no? Variation everywhere. And you have seen this in our previous example right here, di ba? First is our player class. Our player class is reusing or extending the code from character class. So, na-fulfill na yung first condition. The second condition is there's variation in behavior. In this case, yung attack na method is nagva-vary, pabago-bago for each subclass. So, sa player, iba yung behavior sa attack. Sa enemy, iba yung behavior sa attack, and so on and so forth. So, if you have these two conditions, that's the time that you should consider applying the concept of polymorphism. Okay. And specifically, examples of these scenarios that we're gonna benefit polymorphism is, let's say we have a GUI framework with different types of UI components. Let's say a button class, a text box na class, label, and checkbox class. And let's say these four UI components have this method called draw and click. Draw and click na method. So, of course, pag nag-draw yung button, yung itsura niya is rectangle and may text center. Yung text box, pag nag-draw, iba din yung limitation niya kasi it's just simply a box lang. Walang text sa gitna. Then, so, same also with label, checkbox. Iba-iba yung behavior nila pag mag-click. Yung button, pag click at, iba yung behavior. Yung text box, iba. Label, checkbox. So, yun. Another example is a file handling system with different file types. So, let's say, for example, text file, image file, and audio file, they have a common method called the open. Open na method. But, yung open na method is has a different behavior depende sa class. So, open method, iba sa text file, iba yung behavior ng open method sa image file. Yung open method is also different sa audio file, and so on and so forth. And there are, let's say, yung common base class nila is a file na class. So, yung third example is, let's say we have a game with different types of characters. So, yung nakita nyo na example, previously, we have a character na base class, then we have an enemy, player, and NPC na classes. Each of these three have a common attribute, which is yung name. Pwede rin health, then let's say they also have a common method. Let's say attack kanina, o pwede din move. But let's say for example sa enemy, iba yung attack niya kasi pag mag-attack siya, it deals 5 damage, -5 damage. Yung move niya pwedeng 2 squares. Yung player, when it comes sa attack, it deals with -10 damage. Or sa move niya nga method, iba din yung behavior. The player can move 10 squares, no? And yung NPC move, let's say the NPC can move and it cannot attack. So yun. So 3 different subclasses or derived classes sa character class. Same methods, attack and move, but each of these has their own implementation. Iba yung attack niya, iba yung sa enemy, iba yung attack yung move, iba din yung attack and move sa player. So I hope that you have understood this very lengthy explanation. But yeah, basically, yun, that's the appropriate time when we are going to apply polymorphism. When we have many subclasses, and each of these classes have the same method but different implementation for each subclass. And I hope that you've learned something from this video, and that's pretty much about it regarding polymorphism. So if you have any questions, or there's something that's confusing in this video, you might want to replay or recap some, or just simply leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll try to answer that. And yeah, that's pretty much about it for this video, and thank you for watching, and see you guys in the next videos. Bye bye.